This is another lesson for continuous writing, and the topic is on description of events. In this video, we are going to look at events which are sad or unhappy, or we call them incidents. Okay, we have, for example, fire, flood, robbery, accidents, landslide, snatch theft, and drowning. So, for example, we have accidents. So, there are vocabulary lists for all the events. For example, we have accident, so there are crash, hit, collided, knocked into, hit on, stationary, occurred, overtook, speeding, sped, registration number, license, witness, wreck, fatal or fatality, trap, extricated or prize. We have more words: admitted, discharged, injured, hurt, serious, severe or light or minor. Outpatient treatment, we have treated, shattered, emergency call, casualties, victims, splattered, monsoon drain, ravine, divider, bled, bleeding profusely, or loud bang. And then we have grown in pain, shocked, unconscious, fainted, regained consciousness, state of shock, hit and run, loud explosion, out of control, tireless effort, rescued, saved, skidded. Plunge, windscreen, booth, front, rear, pin in the seats, stopped, hail, passing car, public spiritedness. When we have also Samaritan, dented, damaged, flipped, wrecked or wreckage, spluttering sound of car engine, and rush to hospital. Next, we look at the word list for robbery. Rob, burglarize, broke into, stole, snatch, robbery, theft, burglary, robbers, thief, thieves, burglar, ransack, gag mouth, tied up, at gunpoint, yielded a knife, masked, armed with gun or armed with pistol, armed with revolver or machete. Next, we have gunshots, demanded, surrounded, surrendered, custody, captured, caught red-handed, arrested, imprisoned, jail, alerted, handed over, chase, pursued, escaped, getaway car. We have ordered, stood watch, sped off, pound, flee, fled, ran away, escaped, loaded cash, jewelry, goods, fired, shot, exchanged gunshots, looted or loot. Next is snatch theft. So we have theft, then you have the word thief or thieves, snatcher, snatch, grabbed violently, riding by, approach, victim, scream, yell, shouted frantically, loudly, top of your lungs, fell down, drag, motorcyclist, pillion rider. Pillion rider is a person who sits behind the motorcyclist. And then sped off or rode off, describe the snatcher, helmet, sunglasses, mask, arm. Okay, you can write they wore masks, they were armed. And then next we have flood, rain heavily, downpour, flash flood, rain, or you can say rain cats and dogs, torrential rain. You have dam burst, river overflowed, water level rose higher. You have dangerous level, submerged, collapsed, inundated, flooded, drowned, evacuated. Some more on flood, you have rose at an alarming rate. Rose is the past tense of rise, so it means that the level of water is higher. Fast current, rescued, rescuer, rooftop, salvage, belongings, properties, higher ground, sought shelter. Sought is the past tense for seek, relief centers, surge, surging flood water, destroyed, destruction, devastating, homeless, stranded or trapped, receded or abated. It means that the water level has gone down. Okay, then continue. Triggered landslides, volunteers, volunteered, airlifted, medical supplies, deserted homes, tropical cyclone, typhoon, ferocious high winds, low-lying areas, perish, claim life, power failure, cholera outbreak. Now we move on to fire. We have the word blaze, flame, inferno, fire, burnt now, ablaze, ravage, rage, on fire, aflamed, spread, sparks, douse, put out or extinguish. We have pandemonium, engulf, fireman, fire engine, brigade, hydrant, ladder, water hose, trap. Then suffocated, ruined, charred remains, ashes, blackened, salvage, rekindled, palm water, sprayed, cordon off, damage, destroyed. Smoke, billowed, drifted, crackling sound, leaped, intense, adjacent, evacuated, evacuees, police personnel on duty, electricity supply cut off, and ascertained. This is the sample essay for a robbery. I sat down on the row of chairs. There were not many people in the bank on the Tuesday afternoon, so I figured that I would not have to wait long for my turn. Suddenly, I heard someone shout behind me. Instinctively, I looked around, and I was shocked to see two gunmen brandishing handguns and telling everyone in the bank to get down on the floor. I obeyed quickly. I was too stunned to feel any fear. I just lay down on the floor like the other customers. I could not see anything except the floor tiles next to my face, but I heard harsh voices shouting, the sound of someone being hit and some death threats being uttered. It sounded like the robbers would not hesitate to shoot anyone who did not comply. From the corner of my eye, I caught the sight of a pair of moving boots. For the first time, I felt fear. The boots must be that of one of the robbers. Anyhow, the boots disappeared from view for a moment, reappeared and then disappeared again. I heard the trampling of feet, and I knew that the robbers were making their escape. It did not take them long to do their dirty business. I raised my head and had a momentary glimpse of two figures running out of the bank door. Another figure flashed past my view, and I realized that it was a security guard. He was holding a pump gun in his hands. I got up to have a better view. The security guard ran out of the bank just as the robbers were making their getaway on a motorcycle. The motorcycle sped off just as the guard leveled his gun and fired at the fleeing duo. Even in the bank, the sound of the shot was deafening. From my position, I saw the shoot hit the pillion rider smack on his back. There was a spray of blood and body went limp. As the motorcycle accelerated, the pillion rider was flung backwards onto the road in a lifeless heap. The guard fired another shot at the remaining motorcyclist. The shot missed the target but shattered the back screen of a car nearby. By then, I was out of the bank watching the real-life action. So were other customers. It was just like in the movies, except that it was for real. The guard ran up to the robber that he had shot and examined the slumped figure. There was no sign of life. The guard then picked up a bag that the robber had dropped. No doubt it contained the loot. I watched the scene until the police arrived about 10 minutes later. After I went home, as there was no point hanging around, I could do my banking at another time. This is a sample essay. The title is A Snatch Theft. It was a cool September morning. Early rain had cleared the skies to a golden hue. The occasional pit-pat of the raindrop on the rooftop gutters lulled me to a dreamy stupor. Soon I would have to get up as I had to attend a club meeting. My brother Alex had promised to give me a lift before he went to his office. As usual, we dropped at Permai restaurant for breakfast. The town was just beginning to stir from his sleep as Alex swerved into one of the many empty parking lots. While he slotted some coins into the parking machine, I grabbed my handbag and sauntered to the restaurant, the aroma of teh tarik beckoning me. Suddenly, I felt a strong tug from behind, and before I realized it, my handbag was gone. I looked up and saw two men on a motorcycle. Then it hit me. Snatch thieves. I screamed, but the sound was a mere whimper. I ran towards Alex, arm flailing. He jumped into his car and gave chase. By this time, some workers from the restaurant who had realized what had happened brought me into the restaurant and gave me a hot tea tarik. Curious eyes followed me. I could not swallow. Why me? The thought of losing my handphone made me nauseous. I was vaguely aware that my arm was throbbing and I saw that it was swollen. 20 minutes later, and what seemed like an eternity to me, Alex came back empty-handed. I was relieved that he was all right. He advised me to eat something. The toffee tasted like paper, and I pushed the plate away. We headed for the police station nearby, and this time I kept close to Alex. A kind elderly policeman took me into a room where I tried to narrate the incident. We saw several women complaining loudly to an officer. Alex told me they were also victims of snatch thefts. Somehow the thought that I was not the only victim comforted me. Alex sent me to school with some money when I insisted on going. I sat bravely through the meeting without uttering a word. I waited nervously for Alex to pick me up, but he was late. May, my friend, offered to walk me home. Each time we crossed a road, I clutched her hand. Each motorcyclist that came by looked suspicious to me. That night, after saying a prayer for my mother, I finally broke down and cried. I could not sleep as images of those two men lurked in my mind, but I was thankful that I was not hurt. I resolved to be more alert the next time. I struggled for a few hours before exhaustion took over. I shall never forget this day for the rest of my life. Here is a sample essay, the title A Road Accident. Road accidents are reported in newspapers and on television every day. They are more frequently caused by reckless drivers rather than faulty vehicles. Last Saturday, while I was traveling from Ipoh, I witnessed a serious accident. The scene of the accident was vivid in my mind. A motorcyclist was following behind my taxi very closely. He was so impatient that he was trying to overtake my taxi even near a sharp bend. At that critical moment, there was an oncoming car. The taxi driver swerved to the roadside and I got a terrible jolt. It was too late for the motorcyclist to avoid the car. His motorcycle ran against the bumper of the car and smashed its windscreen. The motorcyclist somersaulted over the car and was found lying in the pool of blood. It was a scene of chill the flesh. The car driver, who was cut by the flying glass, was in a state of shock. All that happened in split second and fear overwhelmed us. The taxi driver stopped his taxi and I quickly ran to the nearest telephone booth to inform the police and the hospital. From the distance, I could see some people trying to help the injured police motorcyclist and the car driver. They carried them into one of the onlookers' car and sent them to the hospital for treatment. Meanwhile, the taxi driver tried to control and direct the traffic. Soon the police arrived and they promptly took some measurements and evidence. After that, they moved the damaged car and the motorcycle to the roadside to ease the traffic congestions. They also took down the evidence provided by witnesses and onlookers. Some sweepers were clearing the debris and the bloodstains on the road. When the taxi finally continued the journey, I silently thanked God for my narrow escape. I learned a good lesson that impatience and recklessness would bring harm and danger. I was happy to see that Malaysians are public-spirited and they render help to others readily. Since then, I remember and follow the saying, more haste, less speed, and prevention is better than cure. I believe good road manners and road safety campaigns can help to reduce the number of road accidents, which cause injuries, loss of life, and properties. Let's look at a sample essay. The title is A Flood. It was the worst rainy weather that I had seen. The skies remained overcast and sheets of rain poured down without stopping. In the evenings, the rain was usually accompanied by blinding flashes of lightning and deafening peals of thunder. Most of the residents in my area remained confined indoors. Apart from people scurrying to and from work and school, there was little outdoor activity. After about a few days of incessant rain, the swollen river burst its banks and unleashed its fury on the residents. Many of the residents were caught off guard. As the flood waters rose, the water started gushing into their homes. The flood swept away everything in its path, such as rubbish bins and small pots of plants. Cars parked along the roads were half submerged. Everyone tried to shift their things to higher level, but their efforts were in vain. There was not enough time as the flood water was moving fast. Everyone could only save themselves. Many residents managed to climb up to the rooftop. Rescue boats were nowhere in sight. Some people were soaking wet while some managed to wait under an umbrella. Soon the rescue boats came and picked up the residents to a flood relief center, which was crowded with people. After about a day of heavy downpour, the rain finally showed signs of abating. The overcast skies finally cleared, so everyone started to return to their homes. In the event of flood, we need to take precautions to stay safe. People could easily get drowned in a flood, so it is important not to walk or wade through flood waters. We can also avoid electrocution by staying away from power lines and electrical wires. Another essay, the title A Flood. I was rudely awakened by screams and shouts. My alarm clock showed that it was only 3 a.m. What could have happened at this unearthly hour? Could it be a break-in? I realized that it was raining. Suddenly it dawned on me that our house could be flooded. How silly of me not to think of the flood. Luckily, the water came up to only the car porch, but it shows how much the flood has affected us mentally. This is not the first time that our house, in fact, the whole housing area of Taman Bahagia has been flooded. We have been facing this nightmare every time there is a torrential downpour since we moved in 2 years ago. The latest incident occurred about 2 months ago. After a 3-hour downpour, the whole of Taman Bahagia was inundated to about 1.5 meters of water. We struggled to remove our belongings to the top floor. Father's car was so badly damaged that he had to spend more than Rm 3,000 on repair. The amount of mud and slime took us a whole back-breaking day to clear. It has come to a point that every time there is rain, we are all kept on tenterhooks. Father especially has been having recurring nightmares. Why don't you shift out? Close friends once asked. We have been thinking about it 100 times. However, it is easier said than done. Father has bought this house for nearly Rm 100,000, partly from his life savings and partly from a bank loan. He spent another 10,000 on renovation and on some new furniture. We had all thought it was our dream house when we moved in, until we had the first taste of a flash flood 3 months later. We became disillusioned when the second flood occurred just after we had spent 2 days cleaning up the mess caused by the flood. Father was so furious that he decided to dispose of the house, even at a loss. However, there were no takers for obvious reasons. Worse still, there was no response to our advertisements to lock up the house. To add insult to injury, insurance agents gave us the cold shoulder when we wanted to insure our house. Eventually, we all agreed that the only option was to stay put and seek the help of the authorities to solve the problem. It has been 2 years now and nothing concrete has been done yet by the authorities, except promises that the river nearby will be deepened. An action committee had been set up in Taman Bahagia. The committee had met a number of times. The members hoped for a dialogue with the local town council so that they can work together to avoid another major flood. In fact, anxiety runs high again among the residents with the anticipation of the adverse effects of the approaching La Nina. Based on reports in the mass media, massive floods of greater intensity would deepen the nearby river without further delay. The Drainage and Irrigation Department states that diversion channels will be built, including an internal drainage system with a retention pond. These will allow excess runoff to flow into the river without overloading the existing drains of Taman Bahagia. Meanwhile, it is hoped that the town council workers will keep the drains free of refuse regularly. Despite the effort to solve the flood woes, the committee has been picked by residents for their apathy. They have in fact aggravated problems with their discriminate throwing of garbage which caused drains to clog. Old tires, plastic bottles, tins, and other refuse that are thrown into the river eventually find their way to the floodgate, negating its mitigating function. Accidentally, the floodgate has not been regularly manned and monitored. With built-up silt and garbage around the floodgate, the flood situation may even be worse. The Action Committee, together with the Residents Association formed recently, has come out with their own line of action in the event La Nina causes the river to spill over. They will take turns to keep vigil. Boats are on standby to rescue flood victims. Individuals have stocked up bricks in their houses to protect their refrigerators and other electrical appliances from possible damage by floodwaters. The residents have been advised to stock up sufficient essential food in the house. The long-term plan of the committee is to have a permanent solution to the floods. The title for this essay is A Flash Flood. Describe how bad weather conditions affected the people living in your area. It was the worst rainy weather I'd seen. The sky remained overcast as sheets of rain poured down without stopping. In the evenings, the rain was usually accompanied by blinding flashes of lightning and deafening peals of thunder. Most of the residents in my area remained confined indoors. Apart from the people scurrying to and from work and school, there was little outdoor activity. The town where I live, Kuantan, faces the Pahang River. After 3 days of incessant rains, the swollen river burst its banks and unleashed its fury on the residents. Many of the residents were caught off guard. As the flood waters rose, many of the residents were forced to flee their homes. Although our area was a flood-prone area, many were caught by surprise as this was not the monsoon season. Every year, the northeast monsoon would bring heavy rains to the east coast at the end of each year. However, the sudden floods in the middle of the year caused jitters among the residents. Houses were inundated. The heavy downpour also triggered landslides, causing further damage to houses. The heavy rain caused traffic woes as many vehicles were stopped. Some motorists were seen pushing their stopped vehicles while others were stranded. When the rain did not abate after 2 consecutive days, people began to be evacuated to higher ground. Many took shelter in a secondary school nearby, which was turned into a temporary relief center. Most of the residents did not have time to salvage their belongings. Several residents from nearby villages were marooned in the area after road links were cut off by the floodwaters. Various authorities were deployed to help evacuate and supply food to the flood victims. Strong winds aggravated the situation for several trees were uprooted. Roofs of houses were ripped off and went hurtling away in the wind. Thank you for watching this video on continuous writing for events which are set or incidents such as flood, robbery, fire, and accident. I hope you will subscribe to my channel. Okay, bye bye. That's all.